And welcome back. So, the Arkansas General Assembly meets every 2 years, and in that time, because they're not a full time legislature, there are different problems that arise. And so, during this interim period where constitutionally the Arkansas General Assembly doesn't have legislative authority, people start making lists. People start checking their lists and say, "Oh, this problem is a big issue." So when we get back into session, that we're going to address it. One of those problems centers around landlords, tenants, and their rental property. And here's an example of this. Look at this. This is from the Arkansas Democrat Gazette last year, August, in the middle of the summer. Okay, August the 18th. This headline, many Arkansans read: Arkansas Attorney General sues owner of troubled Little Rock apartment complex over deceptive practices. Okay, so when we say apartment complexes, we're talking about apartment complexes that look like this. The Office of the Arkansas Attorney General on Wednesday last year filed a lawsuit over alleged violations of the Arkansas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. Okay, so this is back when Attorney General Leslie Rutledge was serving in that position, and now she's the Lieutenant Governor, and now, of course, Tim Griffin is the Attorney General. The civil complaint filed in Pulaski County Circuit Court on Wednesday names Big Country Chateau LLC, as well as being associated with the parent companies Apex Big Chateau Arkansas and Apex Equity Group LLC. So what I did was is I researched that group, and I ended up finding that this is not just an Arkansas problem. This particular company that's based out of New York in the Northeast, probably living a pretty plush lifestyle. There are also the problems with this same company out of Texas, Sherman, Texas, to be specific. This from the local affiliate there. Court records show landlords' history of cutting utilities as Sherman Dennison apartments span across country or across the county. And you see this, they're having issues. The tenants are upset. One of the spokesperson for the city of Sherman says that it's incredibly frustrating for everybody, certainly from the city's perspective, when you can't find a responsible person at any of these companies when there are these egregious living conditions. It's frustrating. Quote, the owner lives in New York. We can't look it up. It just says Apex LLC, so I don't know what to do. So this is just one example. And essentially what has happened is, because the Arkansas General Assembly is now in session, people are starting to bring up this concept that has been debated before and has failed before, saying that maybe there are some changes that need to be made between the landlord and tenant relationship. Okay, and so there's a debate to be had here. People are working on this issue, so I decided to reach out to State Representative Matt Brown, and he joins us now. Mr. State Representative, thanks so much for being on the program.
You said it's an issue that has come up. These stories in the news are just heartbreaking. And also from my perspective, I'm an attorney in private practice and I do a lot of landlord tenant law. And 98% of the time I'm representing the landlords. We're trying to get rid of deadbeat tenants. And the system is really breaking down for both tenants and landlords in Arkansas right now. It's high time that we get some changes made. And like you said, previous attempts in the legislature to make changes have failed. Second to most recent was the Landlord Tenant Act of 2007, which just is not really doing anybody any good. Last year there was a habitability bill, and it did end up uh, modified in order to get the support to pass, and it's just not really serving landlords or tenants, to tell you the truth. And so Representative Duffield, a fellow freshman from Russellville, has kind of spearheaded an effort to put together a group to start looking at this. And one thing that Representative Duffield has done is he's trying to create a group that ensures that all the stakeholders are represented. So he's wanting to get he's got tenants' rights folks. He's got landlords to make sure they're protected. He asked me as an attorney representing landlords to be involved from the legal side. And so he's working with this, and the group has already spoken with Speaker Shepard about possibly doing a legislative task force, getting our colleagues over in the Senate on board as well, and to use this session, and it's going to take some time, but to really get in depth on some of these issues and see what we can fix, because the system as it is has got some issues, and we need to do right by our Kansans.
Okay, so immediately I can hear the property owners. I can hear their side of it. This is my property. Property rights. I can do what I want. Interestingly, we saw this during COVID, right? And you feel free to speak to this.
Yeah.
When COVID, you had these eviction moratoriums, which essentially said, you know, you can't kick people out of their homes now. And we've seen this before COVID. Even you saw these kind of laws in California and New York, which essentially strip property owners of a lot of rights. So there is a way to obviously take this too far, where you do remove the rights of property owners. But so is there a balance here? What's the balance? What are some of the issues? Just speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, and that's actually what's been the big issue in our kind of our group meeting so far, our focus group, is the problem that we're having in Arkansas. It's not your mom and pop landlords. It's not your folks that have worked hard their entire lives. They have, two, three, four, six, maybe 10 doors. They are here local. They treat their tenants right. They take care of problems. That's not what this is talking about at all. It's just like you said earlier. It's these out of state conglomerates that are coming in. They're buying up properties. They are absentee landlords. They are sucking every bit of profit they can out of these properties, and they're just not being responsible landlords. So I want to make sure that because that is a touchy issue of, landlords provide a very valuable service in the state. They provide housing for people who may not otherwise be able to afford housing. Maybe they can't buy a house. Maybe they can't qualify for financing. Maybe they're just living in a community for a little bit of time and they can't afford to buy, but they can rent. Landlords provide a very valuable service. And, I represent landlords, and usually anytime you talk about, well, we need to change the law on this, they instantly get defensive because usually they're always being attacked. And, that's not the case at all. And that's why I'm actually glad that Representative Duffield included me in this group so that I can present that kind of that opposing viewpoint, or not even opposing viewpoints. We're not in opposition, but just make sure that their concerns are addressed.
Yeah.
We don't want to go to some sort of New York style or some of these other states where tenants can live in a property for years with no repercussions and the landlord's footing the bill. And you mentioned the COVID, the eviction moratorium, which is personally a law that, well, I say a law, an executive order. And to be fair, it started President Trump's administration and then Joe Biden continued it. But, when we have the federal government telling landlords, you may not evict your tenants if they do not pay. But oh, by the way, you're still responsible for your mortgage payments and your utilities and your insurance. And probably even the most frustrating is, and we're not even going to give you a tax credit or a tax holiday. So you still got to pay your property taxes as well. But we're gonna shift the burden of this policy response onto you as the landlords. I mean, it really hurt my clients, and we're still seeing the after effects to today. Here of course, I practice in Faulkner County, but here in Pulaski County, if you are a landlord and you have a tenant who's not paid you, if you want to evict them through the court system, you're probably looking at a 6-month process right now. It's
Wow.
it's that backed up and that delayed. And that's actually one of the things that I would like to try to address is if we are going to do some landlord tenant reform, I want to make it easier on landlords to be able to evict tenants who do not pay their rent. It's probably hurt me as an attorney, but I want to make it to where landlords aren't having to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on lawyers to get rid of a tenant who never paid 1 month's rent. That's just not right.
No, absolutely.
And the only way the system can function is we can get rid of those tenants who are not doing right. But like from Representative Duffield's point, but if a tenant is doing what they're supposed to be doing, they are paying their rent, they're paying in full, they're paying it on time, then a landlord should not be able to not pay the water bill and have the water cut off for the complex, which is what's going on with the chateau right now here in Pulaski County. So it's COVID, I think, has shown some of the cracks in our system, and it's made it worse. And
Okay.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm glad you brought that up. That's why I wanted to have you on to talk about this, because I wanted to understand the other side. I think I'm more is slanted to understand the property ownership side. But so yes, if you're a tenant and you are paying and you're paying on time, and that's what Attorney General Leslie Rutledge. That's why she sued, because the living conditions. So if you don't pay the water bill, if the company doesn't pay the water bill, then you're essentially relegated to a third world living status. And at the same time, this giant company basically these are slumlords. They're up in Brooklyn, New York, probably, well, certainly not living in conditions where they don't have running water, right?
Exactly. And the one common denominator so far that seems like we're seeing is it's all it's these out-of-state conglomerates. It's not the Arkansas landlords that are causing the problem. It's these out-of-state conglomerates, which I'm sure these things are just owned by groups of investors, and they're probably bundled up into pools, and there's no real person at the other end of the line. It's just an investment to them. And, when you have, a family that's working hard and they're paying their rent and they don't have heat for their kids, that's a problem.
Oh yeah, that's a huge problem. Well, really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this issue. So, just to be specifically clear, you're trying to get support for this issue. So we don't have a bill yet. Could we expect a bill this session, or is this something that we're going to talk about a little bit more? And you mentioned a task force. So what are you guys trying to accomplish this session on this particular issue?
So as far as this session, I have a few bills that I'm actually in the drafting process right now that I'd like to run to try to address some things on the eviction side to help out some landlords with their evictions and fix some of the problems here in Pulaski County we're having. I've also got another bill that I'm getting prepared to run, which is on this was actually Representative Hawks from last session, but it never got ran. Is on emotional support animals. That's a big abuse right now where folks are leasing an apartment, no pets allowed. They get in next day. Well, here's my printout from the internet that I need an emotional support animal. So therefore you have to let me have my dog. We're trying to get a bill, try to curb some of that abuse as well. And keep in mind, there's a huge difference between an actual legitimate service animal and an emotional support animal. So I just want to make that clear.
Right.
But as far as this task force, like I said, we're right now just kind of in the early planning stages. We kind of got gummed up by the weather down here. My guess is there could be a bill later in the session, although my feeling is, and we all know how government's kind of slow, it might be something that the bill doesn't actually come out to session. Because like I said, right now we're just in the process of actually creating the task force. And that is one thing Representative Duffield, I don't know if you know him, but he's very good on talking with people, and he's really been working hard on behind the scenes he's trying to get everyone bought in because he knows that that's the only way we can get something done is everyone is represented, everyone has a say in it. And so he's working hard. I'll put it that way.
All right. Well, it's great to meet you, State Representative Matt Brown. We really appreciate it. And you're welcome on the program anytime, sir.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you.